been a while since we looked at Phil Collins' most famous fill, so it's about time to revisit his work and check out the band that made him famous, Genesis. While the band was originally formed in 1967, it took 3 years until drummer Phil Collins became a member of what was about to become one of the biggest rock bands of all time. During his first years with the band, Peter Gabriel was the lead singer and Collins was the drummer, providing the band with the right groove. But when Gabriel left the band in 1975 and they failed to find a suitable successor, Phil Collins took over the vocal part for the upcoming album A Trick of the Tail. Let's have a listen to the very first Genesis song Phil Collins recorded vocals for, Squonk.
Walking home that night, the sack across my back, the sound of sobbing on my shoulder, and suddenly it stopped. I opened up the sack, all that I had, a pool of bubbles and tears, just a pool of tears.
This album really is a turning point in the band history of Genesis and also marks the beginning of their commercially most successful period. For our recreation, however, we want to skip a few more albums and jump straight to the 80s and their best-selling album Invisible Touch, released in 1986. It's remarkable if you think about this one already being their 13th studio album. If you have the time, we highly recommend to simply jump from album to album and listen to the drum sound evolving from a pretty rough 70s sound to the famous 80s drum sound most people connect to Genesis. Here's their song Land of Confusion. What a great song! If you haven't done so already, make sure to follow our channel for more videos like this one in the future. One of the first things we realized when preparing this shoot was that the drum track for the song is a mix of electronic sounds and acoustic drums. So we decided to keep the clap sounds in the backing track and find out how close we can get to the rest of the drum track using only acoustic drums. To do so, we brought in the same Gretsch kit we already used in our In the Air Tonight recreation. Haven't seen this one? Make sure to check it out. The Renown shells we used here are 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 and 18-inch toms and a 20-inch kick drum. For the kick, we went with a coated Power Stroke 3 drumhead. This pre-dampened drumhead has the right warmth we need here. For a short sustain, Pascal cut a huge hole in the reso head and placed 2 blankets inside the drum shell. That's pretty close to what Collins did back in the day. And this microphone right here is an M88, so let's get one into our kick drum as well. Pascal chose to also put in a boundary mic, a TGD71, for some more flexibility in the mix, giving him some extra attack to mimic the electronic sounds used alongside the acoustic ones. Now here's the tuning of the batter head. And this is what the mixed kick drum sounds like. Maybe the most recognizable part of Phil Collins' drum kits are his toms. He usually used concert toms, and if you're not familiar with this term, these toms simply have no reso head. To mimic this, we got rid of the resonant heads of our regular toms and installed clear ambassador heads as batter heads. Now if you're wondering why we're installing the head on this 14-inch tom upside down, we have no 14-inch rack tom for this drum kit, and this way we can use the floor tom leg mount to simply mount the tom on a tom holder. This way we're converting a 14-inch floor tom to a rack tom. Here's the tuning. When we had all microphones, 6 biodynamic M201s, in place, Pascal decided that some muffling was needed to hit the right sound characteristics, so with some tape on each drum head, here's the mixed tom sound. If you want to dive deep into Pascal's audio mixing process, there will be a mixing breakdown video available for free at ArtOfDrumming.com very soon. Now the last drum missing is the most important, the snare. If you check out older photos, you often see Phil Collins playing snares that appear to be 14 by 4 inches, and this might also be what he used in the studio back then. Since the one closest to that size in our stock is a 14 by 5, we decided to go with this one and ended up with a new Classics limited edition chrome over brass snare. Since the original snare sound appears to be pretty dead, we went with a coated power stroke head. This drumhead model features a dampening ring underneath. For an even drier sound, Pascal then added this little muffling tool to mimic an internal muffler. Tuned to the exact pitch as the original, it's time to bring in 2 more M201s for the snare top and bottom mics. Here's the final snare sound. Now that all drums are in place, it's time to continue with the cymbals. Just as he switched from Premier and Pearl drums to Gretsch in the 80s, he also used Zildjian and Paiste cymbals prior to choosing Sabian at some point. Besides that, it's hard to tell what exact cymbals he might have used in the studio, so we simply went by ear and chose what sounded closest. Since many pictures and sources claim he uses 15-inch hi-hats, we also picked 15s and went with A newbie tats. To mimic this setup from the 80s, we went with 3 crashes, a 16-inch A medium thin crash, an 18-inch A custom crash, and a 20-inch A thin crash. The ride here is a 20-inch K custom medium ride, and to complete the setup, we placed a China on the far right, a 20-inch FX Oriental China trash. The only 4 mics we have not mentioned yet are 2 M90 Pro X's as overheads, an M130 bidirectional ribbon mic for the room, and an M930 for the hi-hat. Since the original groove seems to be programmed, and there's some sounds in there that appear to be Simmons electronic drums, Pascal decided to come up with a groove variation that's playable on acoustic drums and mimics everything going on in the original. Here's his version of Land of Confusion. Are you into the gated reverb sound of the 80s? We sure love it. The second song we picked is from their album We Can't Dance from 1991, and it's called Jesus He Knows Me. Have a listen.
Been talking to Jesus all my life. Oh yes, he knows me and he knows I'm right. Well, he's been telling me everything's gonna be alright. 'Cause Jesus, he knows me and he knows I'm right. He knows. Oh yes, he knows me and he knows I'm right.
Now that's a completely different drum sound and a good example of Genesis going back and forth between acoustic and programmed drum sounds all the time. This symbiosis of both worlds is also something very characteristic for their music. While we didn't have to touch the tuning and muffling of any toms and the kick drum, we had to adjust the snare tuning. This is the new higher tuning. Another thing missing if you want to play the song is a splash cymbal, so we picked an 11-inch K-Custom hybrid splash and placed it right in the center of the kit. Enjoy Pascal's performance.
You see the face on the TV screen, coming at you every Sunday. See the face on the billboard, well that man is me. On the cover of the magazine, there's no question why I'm smiling. You buy a piece of paradise, you buy a piece of me. I'll get you everything you wanted, I'll get you everything you need. You don't need to believe in hereafter, just believe in me. Cause Jesus, he knows me, and he knows I'm right. I've been talking to Jesus all my life. Oh yes, he knows me, and he knows I'm right. He's been telling me everything is alright. I believe in the fact.
Once again, the gated reverb is a huge part of the sound, and if you want to know how Pascal got there, check out the mixing video. Which of those two sounds do you prefer, and what is your favorite drum performance by Phil Collins ever? Let us know in the comments, and keep the suggestions for new episodes coming. As always, if you want to support our work, there's a donation link in the description, and every small amount helps us sustain our work. Thank you so much for being part of our community, and see you in one of the next videos.